Welcome to the lecture on Dadaism. Now, Dadaism was one of many different forms that came out of modernism. Dadaism sprang up in Europe after World War I. World War I was a tremendous shock to the artists that were involved in Dadaism. The way they looked at it, a series of people, very logical, rational people, made decision after decision that led to a world war that cost the lives of millions of people and destroyed countries. In a response to that, they felt that basically they should be illogical, as a protest to the society that created these conditions. So they rejected society purposely being illogical. Yeah. Now, the Dadaists, basically, they made art that was meant to, kind of shock, art that was supposed to uh, confront, the average viewer. So, one of the Dadaists was an artist named John Heartfield. Now, Heartfield started making art during the 1930s in Germany. Now, during this time, Hitler and the Nazis were rising to power. And Heartfield, being a socialist, was totally opposed to what was going on, to the changes that were happening in the government. It changed from a democratic form to a fascist, authoritarian government. Yeah. Now, Heartfield used photo montage to create his art. Now, photo montage is where you basically take photos, recombine them, cut them up, combine them, and then rephotograph it to create a seemingly single photograph. This is different than collage or photo collage, where you can actually see where the photographs and other graphic elements are cut up and pasted together. As I mentioned, Heartfield was very anti-fascist, very against the Nazis. And a lot of his art appeared in AIZ, which was the magazine of the Socialist Party in Germany. This is one of his covers. And translated, the title says Hitler's Dove. And if you look at the picture, well, obviously it's not a dove, it's a hawk, a bird of prey. Yeah. This picture, not exactly subtle. This is Hermann Goering, who was head of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, and a right-hand man to Hitler. And here we see him, bellowing away, his head actually kind of displaced, making him look even more freakish, with a huge axe and blood spattered all over him. And the title for this one is Goering, the Butcher of the Third Reich. Some historical precedents to this picture here. The top photo is actually a picture of a medieval torture device that was called the wheel. And the idea was, someone was strapped to this wheel and then it was turned and it basically broke you. It shattered all the bones in your body. And in the bottom picture, we see a person strapped to the wheel of the Nazi swastika. And the title for this says, As it was in the Middle Ages, so it is with the Third Reich. I think this montage is especially interesting. The other ones basically criticize the Nazis, but this one gets to the people behind the Nazis. How did the Nazis rise to power? Hitler was a master of manipulation of public opinion. But in this particular photograph, it shows Hitler as a relatively small person. There's a much larger person behind him who is faceless. And what he's implying here is the idea that Hitler was actually propped up by the capitalist industry of Germany between the war. Hitler was very anti-labor, and he quashed labor unions and quashed protests by the unions for better conditions, better wages. So what this cover says, Hitler had a saying that millions stand behind me. The idea that there were millions of people supporting him. Well, in this picture, the millions turned out to be cash, Deutschmarks, being handed to him by industrialists, and implicating the corporate powers that helped Hitler rise to power. And Heartfield had a sense of humor too. Here we see your German family in the late 30s. Germany was rapidly rearming, making bombs and bombers and fighters and tanks. And in this picture, basically it's saying it was doing this to the detriment of other aspects of society. Here we have her family sitting down to dinner, and they're a nice, loyal Nazi family. They've got Nazi wallpaper on there and a picture of their leader, Hitler, in the background. But rather than food, they have all these industrial elements. And the title for this in the bottom says, "Hurry, the butter is almost gone." The idea that if you put enough butter on all of this stuff, you can actually somehow eat it. It's kind of funny. You have the dog at the bottom trying to eat a nut and bolt, and the child in the crib is trying to gnaw on an axe. This is probably Heartfield's most famous photo montage. Here we have Hitler, and his chest is an X-ray. We actually see inside of him. And what we see is a whole line of gold coins coming down from his mouth into his stomach. The title for this one says, "Adolf the Superman. He swallows gold and speaks garbage."